Order. We have item number 2. We have a guest from New York, and I think out of respect for his schedule, we'd like to take item number 2 out of order. So with that, let's just move right into item number 2.
Item number 2 is a motion Alarcon Labange relative to economic impact of raising the entertainment production cap from $2.5 million to $5 million.
Okay, who's presenting on that?
John Wickham with the CLA's office. Don't really have a presentation. This is a motion that was introduced by you, Mr. Alarcon, and this would seek a study or an evaluation by city staff of the proposal and move this forward. This production, this change in the production tax was initially proposed by BTAC and was rolled into their proposal. But since the production tax is independent of the gross receipts tax, this is something that doesn't really fit into that study that they're moving forward with, and this can be taken up independently. So your motion would have a city staff report back quickly on the impact of this tax reform and allow council to move quickly on it.
Okay. Although we do have some numbers. Do you have the numbers?
We do have some preliminary numbers that AICP has put together and Office of Finance has put together as well. They're consistent. And the impact, the initial impact, looks to be about $1 million using last year's tax revenues. This is the number of productions that are in that gap between $2.5 million and $5 million. Who would be reducing their tax liability, and then all of the productions that generate that are over $5 million would have a reduction in their tax liability as well. So the combined total is expected to be about $1 million. We need to take a look at all of that data a little more closely to verify the information that's available.
Okay. I introduced this motion as part of our constant endeavor in this new makeup of this committee since last August to try and stimulate new business. So obviously the theory is that more film producers in this category, film production companies, would be coming to Los Angeles to do their filming. And also some that fit into this category would expand their filming opportunities. It's just part of the multitude of things that we've been doing. We do have 3 cards on this item, so I'd like to ask Matthew Miller, who is the guest that I spoke of. He's from the AICP, the Association of Independent Commercial Producers. Please.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and I do appreciate you moving the schedule around for my schedule. It's much appreciated. And I thank you and all the council members for the opportunity to be here. I'll try to be really brief. Being from the commercial business, I believe anything can be said in about 60 seconds, so I will try to stick to that. Really, I think that this motion is about one thing and one thing only, and it's about sending a message and making Los Angeles more friendly and more welcoming to both producers inside Los Angeles and outside Los Angeles. And the reason I say that is because commercials by their very nature are things that can really shoot almost anywhere. And those decisions are made job by job no matter where you're based. And we've seen over the course of the last, almost 10 years as other states are developing incentive programs, a real erosion of production here, so much so that we saw a drop in about 6% of the commercial production done in Los Angeles. And, that equates to quite a few jobs. I think some of our numbers say that, LA jobs alone from those from that loss of 6% is about 100,000 jobs. And we're talking, when we look at FTEs, we're looking at over 3,000 jobs. So we're talking about true employment, not to mention the economic aspects and the infusion of cash here. We've seen a really tough year, and we've seen some tough times within the advertising industry, and budgets are getting squeezed to the point where even an incremental step like this where it would give a few $1,000s back to each company that did some business here, sends a message. And it says, you know what, while the state might not be there yet to give this type of incentive, the city understands it. And we're here to welcome you and roll out the welcome mat. So I think that message alone is really big. And for the incremental cost of $1 million in there, when we've seen that the initial proposal by BTAC originally was a $5 million piece, and I think everyone was a little bit worried about that being right there and what that might do. What we have seen is, whoops, see, I already went over time. I would have been cut off on the network. What we have seen, though, is about a cumulative 43% increase in the tax revenue since that adjustment. So I think the trending shows us that, going to $5 million won't break the bank. It actually could have the opposite effect and truly attract more production.
Thank you. Any questions of this witness? Okay, please.
Of the 42 or so states in the country that are offering production tax incentives, ballpark, how many of them, what kind of percentage of them apply to commercial production?
Most of them do. I would say about 30 of them do. And in fact, I think the best example is New York. New York's film credit does not apply to commercials, but there's a specific commercial tax credit that was implemented 3 years ago. It's a 5-year plan, and it's actually on the floor right now to have the sunset removed because it's worked so well.
Enacted by the city.
And that's by the state.
Okay.
The city has an opt-in aspect, which they haven't opted into yet, but it's a $7 million pool for the commercial industry. I think the most interesting thing about that is this year, looking at the applications that came in, half of those applications for the New York State credit were from Los Angeles. So it's very telling that these do attract people to where they need to be. Now, some of that might have been location decisions that were there, but not all of it. Clearly, a lot of it was pulled in by by the incentive being there.
And then, conversely, how many other cities, is it the norm that other locations charge the kind of production tax that we charge in Los Angeles?
Well, it's not the norm. I mean, there isn't a business tax that works, especially for people who come in from outside. I mean, there are other aspects and formulas to taxation within the state for companies and businesses operating within the state, but it's not the norm to have this kind of tax to begin with. So even though, again, it's an incremental amount of money, it's one of those things where people say, it's just one reason to not go there or stay here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Walsh, thank you, Mr. Miller.
My pleasure. Thank you.
From the Motion Picture Association of America.
Hello, hi. Thank you, Chairman. I won't spend too much time repeating what Matt said, but I just wanted to be here on behalf of the Motion Picture Association to let you know that while the increase in the production cap will largely benefit smaller production companies, not generally our membership, every type of incentive that will help attract production to Los Angeles is great, especially in this down economy. And as you mentioned, there are over 40 states now that have production incentives, and they're all vying for the business and capital investment that come with motion picture and commercial production. And in fact, studies have shown that investment in film and TV production, on balance, is revenue positive. So that's something that we stress when we talk about this in other states and cities. And that's why, even though we're having these down economic times, states like Florida and North Carolina are enhancing their film and TV incentives. We've heard a lot about states considering axing those incentives, and that's just not happening for the most part. In fact, there are a lot of states that are increasing those incentives because they realize the value of the kind of jobs that this industry creates, good paying jobs, clean jobs, that sort of thing. And so I just wanted to stress that even small proposals like this can make a difference depending on the production, and everything gets factored into the production location decision-making process, including incentives like this one. So with that said, I urge your support for this modest proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maya Zutler?
Yes, Maya Zettler on behalf of VICA, Valley Industry and Commerce Association. On behalf of VICA, we are requesting your support for this council motion today to examine raising the entertainment production cap to $5 million. In this current economic downturn, it is vital for Los Angeles to spur business in order to help create jobs and help grow our economy. We believe this industry is an important component of the city's economy, and we have supported BTAC along this process as it has proposed raising this cap threshold to a minimum of $5 million. Raising this threshold would provide significant tax savings to small and medium-sized businesses, which we believe would affect over just half of all commercial production companies, as well as other boutique firms in this industry. We believe this reform will assist in retaining the current level of film activity while attracting recently displaced production back to the city of Los Angeles. And as was stated earlier, we believe that this will send a message that Los Angeles is friendly to this industry and that we are open for business. We are asking for your support of this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no more cards on this matter. Oh, one last one. Ed Gutentag.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, hi again.
Nice to see you again. I can't speak any more highly for this. I mean, and some of you guys already know, I've personally been to Detroit, Michigan shooting, and they currently offer 42% back. And producers are flocking there. And what's happening is that they find out when they get there that there's some hidden costs. And as Councilman Alarcon, as you're aware, because we were sitting with Hawk Koch, the producers in this town don't need actually that much. They just need a little something because everybody's here already, including their own beds. So I'm so in favor of this. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, it would be my intent to move both the report and the drafting of the ordinance forward together, so that we would cut down on any time. Now, recognizing that we would have another bite at the apple to approve the ordinance or disapprove the ordinance or change the ordinance subsequent to receiving the report. I know that's unusual, but again, I want to move forward with a whole bunch of items, not just related to the film industry. And I think every day that we wait on not any singular item, but every day that we wait on the totality of items that we put forward to try and stimulate business and job creation, I think is a day lost. And so that would be my intent. And so I'd like to open it up.
Question.
Yes.
Just so I understand it, we're talking about giving a lower tax rate for this category, where we had it at 2.5 million, now it goes to 5.
Yes.
Okay. And then part of your analysis is going to tell us what the difference in cost between the 2.5 and 5 million?
Yes, it will.
When you said earlier that there was, I think you used the figure of $1 million, is that $1 million per movie shoot, or is that $1 million collectively from the number of shoots we've had in the city?
Collectively. And that's based on data from 2008, 2009 that was presented to BTAC. And that year, the city earned about $2.7 million from the production tax.
And the production tax is based on what? Hours of shooting in the city, number of people? What do we base it on?
It's a formula, a two-part formula, and I need to have it in front of me to explain it carefully. Office of Finance would be able to explain it. So. But it will be part of our report.
The Office of Finance is here, they can explain it very quickly. But currently what it is, 145 for business between 0 and $2.5 million, $145 flat. Between 2.5 and 5 million, it's an additional $1.30 for every $1,000 up to 12 million.
Was this based on the gross expenditure?
The production cost, yes.
Cost, the actual expenditure?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, gotcha.
Okay, so this is not going all the way up to 12 million, but it's going up to 5 million.
Yeah, most of our cost basis in our taxes is gross receipts, and this is a unique tax in that it's based on production costs, not on gross receipts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to move that we press forward on this. We move this, both items forward, but we get a report back from the CLA, hopefully prior to the completion of the ordinance. But can you get it back to us in just a couple of weeks? Or?
I believe so. I'm
Okay.
on jury duty, but
So you'll have plenty of time.
we'll see. While I'm waiting in the court, to see if I wind up on the panel or
Take
not.
your laptop.
So,
The sympathy you get, right? So,
Judge.
so my staff will work with the CLA to try and expedite the report, but if
The
we
ordinance
can move this
itself is
forward-
going to be a very simple revision, changing the number 2.5 million to 5 million. So
Right.
that's not a time
Okay.
crunch. So
Appreciate
this
that.
should be roll out pretty quickly.
So with that, it would be my recommendation to approve this. Do I have concurrence?
Second.
Second by Mr. Krikorian, and Mr. Parks indicates an aye vote as well. So with that, item 2 is passed. Thank you. If we can go back to item number 1.
Item number 1 is a presentation by Film LA relative to the new filming statistics.
Good afternoon. Nice to be back with you. You may have seen through your offices our most recent production statistics that indicate some good news, including the fact that we're seeing an increase in feature filming, all of that increase is attributed to the California Film Incentive. So 16 films were active in that period, all of which attribute to the entire 11% increase in feature film, showing us the importance of this incentive. And thank you, Councilmember Krikorian, for your work when you were in the Assembly to make that happen.
Nothing.
It's nothing, sure. The one thing we want to be cautious about as we look forward is that in the past fiscal year, there was $200 million available and used for this film incentive, and in the year coming, it's $100 million, which was the original plan. We anticipate seeing a reduction in feature film production as a result, since so much of the current increase is being driven by that incentive. And while I'm on that subject, in the news today, in the New York State budget going forward, they're increasing their incentive from $350 million a year to $420 million a year because they're running out of the money so fast every year and they're finding it so valuable. If passed, that 30% incentive will be valid through 2014 in New York State. Other areas, television is continuing to increase, driven at this time of year typically by reality television as the series TV goes on a hiatus during part of our quarter. And so that number is typical for us to see. Overall in the year, about an 8% increase, but in this last quarter, only about 1.4. We've seen a larger increase in commercials, we think driven mostly by the economy, but still well below its point that we think is productive for the region and needs more support as well. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see the recently released Milken Institute report. It's an important document, I think, for California. Its title is Film Flight, Lost Production, and Its Economic Impact on California. A lot of its data came from us as well as other parts of the industry, and they also identify 1997 as our peak year. And I think one of the most key factors for us as a region and the city and certainly the state is that if we had stayed at the level before the other states began competing with us, we would have had a total of about 36,000 more jobs in Los Angeles region and about $4.21 billion in additional expenditures happening in the state. And that, if nothing else, should be an incentive to the state to continue and expand the film incentive that clearly is having a positive impact. We're looking at a good television season this year, we believe, coming up. We've seen more of it happening here than we anticipated.
You're speaking economically, right?
Economically, not content. We don't make content decisions at Film LA. So we are anticipating we'll see more production than before. One of the things we did see was comments about New York losing a lot of its pilots this year, many of which ended up in Connecticut, as at the time their incentive was not available, again proving the driving factor of these incentives. And the other piece of news that might be good news for us is that the studios in New Mexico have filed for bankruptcy. So while they're still able to function, it's making a point that just the incentive, which has been very valuable to New Mexico in producing filming, has not necessarily sustained a large-scale development.
You said the studios.
Studios. One company has 8 sound stages in
Oh, so
Albuquerque.
they manage everything?
Yeah. So the
All the films
stages
go through that?
The stages have filed for bankruptcy. They've built 8 sound stages in New Mexico, and the amount of production has not been enough to sustain those studios.
Wow.
So while there's filming going on in New Mexico, they overbuilt, it appears, and it will probably drive a conversation in New Mexico about the value of what they've done and where they invest their funding. So we'll be tracking that as well in other states.
Now, every time we have one of these discussions, Mr. Krikorian's legislation looms large, but a lot of these categories that have seen increases don't qualify for the credits. Is there any way to segregate the impacts so that we can discern what is the driving force behind all the increases, or in any particular category? Like commercials, I don't believe,
Not eligible.
Commercials don't qualify, and yet they're up 47%?
Yeah, I think the reason for that really was a change in the economy where people began to make commercials again. I mean, the industry went through a terrible time in the doldrums. It still, as I said, is nowhere near where it used to be. So the good news that it's increasing is not an indication of total health for that part of the industry, because it's coming back, but it's nowhere near where it used to be yet. And as was mentioned earlier, we do compete on an incentive basis for those states that do allow them to use those incentives. So we'd like to see that number come back even more than it has. Television side, there are a few television programs that have taken advantage of the incentive, but really where we've seen the dramatic impact has been on the feature film, where all of the increase is associated directly with that incentive. And we think there'd be a lot more if we had more available, a broader incentive and more money.
Okay. So generally speaking, we can say that there's a lot of contributive factors to why there's more filming in Los Angeles. I was curious, I noticed that the TV drama is way down and TV sitcom is way up in Los Angeles. Is that something about the comic nature of Los Angeles, or?
It is kind of funny to work here.
I don't understand why you would break those categories out. They seem to be in the same category.
Well, they're not economically. I mean, a television drama is typically an hour, spends a lot more money, and has a lot bigger staff.
Okay.
So we like to break them out because of their economic impact.
Okay.
And it is cyclical for what's selling. And we think that's the real driver there, is that the comedy has been a bigger seller and more of them are being produced.
But
they are less expensive.
Okay, I see. But I assume it has a less positive economic benefit?
Yes.
Okay, I understand.
Reality is the low end of economic benefit. And as I said, in this quarter, it's typically burgeoning because as shows go off season, they're filled a lot with summer reality programs.
Okay, well, but generally speaking, this is a very positive report for Los Angeles.
We're heading in the right direction,
Great.
slowly and surely, and it needs to do more. And we'll also comment for this committee that we have been dealing a lot with producers and others who've talked about working here or not. And one of the things I think that is true is that they have a perception now that the city's paying attention, and that is largely due to the credit of this committee's actions and the mayor's office in reaching out and making it clear. And so we're getting inquiries now from people who've not filmed here in a long time about what can we do, and believing that it's possible again. So thank you for that effort.
Thank you. If we could, we don't have any cards on this item. Are there any questions of Mr. Audley?
What's the process that allows you to specifically identify the incentives with these productions?
When they file for a permit under the corporate name, we compare them with what the California Film Commission has awarded, so we know which of the permits are associated with the awarded films.
You have to apply for the incentive? Is that how it?
Oh, yeah. In fact, this year, on July 1st, when it was opened for the current year, they fully expended the $100 million in the first day. So there is no funding available from the state now. It was used up in one day, which tells you the demand. We just aren't meeting the demand.
Much of the second year was also used up pretty quickly, too.
Yeah.
One way to address, I think, Mr. Alarcon's inquiry about sort of disaggregating the the causes of these increases might be to look at market share as well. For example, with commercial production, to the extent that it's being driven by improvements in the economy, one would expect to see that there would be increases across markets. And similarly with television, if increases in some area of television, if there's increases in some genres and decreases in others, that might just be because that's the marketplace is. And we would see that across the United States. So it might be helpful to do a comparative analysis like that of what our market share is and trends in that vector as well. And along those lines, has anything like the Milken study been done either within the New York legislature or by private sources within New York so that we can see the impacts of their incentive programs and the other steps that they've been taking, since they're the market that's most closely comparable
the other big
to
dog in the
California.
game, yeah. New York had a study done by Ernst & Young, I think 2 years ago, that identified that for every dollar they were giving out in incentive money, they're giving back $1.87. So that was an independent audit firm that looked at it, and they used very similar kind of information to justify their expansion. And as I said, they're increasing their commitment substantially this year if the budget passes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Ali. Thank you. Item number 3.
Item number 3 is an Office of Finance report relative to sales tax refund for purchases made for filming within the City of Los Angeles and related matters.
Good afternoon. My name is Pete Galan, Principal Tax Auditor from the Office of Finance. We are working on the report relative to the sales tax refund on purchases made within the City of Los Angeles, and we are respectfully requesting for a 30-day extension to come up with a final report. However, I am prepared to discuss the report verbally.
If you have any information.
We have reviewed the request, and we think that it is feasible to provide a 1% sales or use tax refund for all purchases and expenditures within the City of Los Angeles for filming within the city limits. Purchases or spending should be film-related, and 75% of the filming should be done within the City of LA.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just chatting with my staff about, you said 1%.
Yeah, 1%.
We did not specify, we just said a sales tax refund, and I didn't know, how did you hone in on 1%?
Yeah, I think this is the request, lady. I think this is the request that we give 1% refund for all sales made within the City of Los Angeles, and the producer will apply based...
I'm sorry, my motion didn't specify 1% refund. It just said a sales tax refund. I'm just wondering how you came to the figure of 1%.
I don't have the exact basis for the 1%, but I will get back to on our report to...
Before you prepare your report, can you work with my staff on that?
Sure.
Yeah, because, being honest with you, hold on a second. Yeah, some of the other states that have done this, they're sort of all over the map. I was hoping for a total analysis that might give us some options, as opposed to allowing you to pick a figure, and that wasn't the idea. So if your report could come back with a variety of schemes, because 1% might not be much of an incentive at all. Maybe it will be. I don't know. Maybe if you can come back and say, well, yeah, they'll come flocking for 1%.
Yes,
that would take us down to what? 7.5%? Instead
no.
of 8.5%?
8.5%. I think.
It's currently 9.5%?
9.5%.
So 8.5 compares with other states in what way? I mean, isn't that higher than anywhere else in the nation?
I think 1% I think we're giving back up.
No, 8.5%, which is what you're proposing, We're trying to incentivize filming to come to Los Angeles. If you lower it from 9.5 to 8.5, what kind of incentive is that when 8.5 is still higher than just about every state in the nation?
We'll make a further study on that, and we'll get back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
It's a 12% cut. It's, I mean, well, it's hard to get your hands around that unless you can give me some examples of companies that would really come here, because even though they're getting 6% out of some other state or 0% in Nevada, that would change their mind about where they're going to film. So we really want to capture where will it be a real incentive for companies to come. At the same time, we're cognizant. Look at who's on my right here. I don't think Eric Garcetti put him on this committee for no reason. Say keep an eye on Alarcon because he's going to give away the store, and so we recognize that as a committee. So we'll try to be reasonable, and it's just that 1% I don't think is going to be significant to the industry.
Yes, we'll make a further study, and we'll get back.
We made a down payment on the store, but we lost the store. Let me just ask you one thing, just as semantics. Do we have the ability legally to give back sales tax? We're actually just giving them back
The 1%.
fund money. I mean, we have to submit sales tax to the state, right?
Basically, that is our share of the,
That's our, you're
right,
giving it
the
back
city's
out of
share,
our share.
1%.
Now, do you send it to the state and they give it back?
yes,
Okay, then you have the ability
to
to disperse.
refund the money back.
I just want to make sure that I understood that when we talk about state tax, we have to extract it, send it forward, and then it comes, our portion comes back.
Yeah, the 1% is our
In
share.
fact, we're giving back general fund money. It's,
Right.
it's been cleaned a little bit.
Yeah.
The other thing I was wondering about is that you're going to be looking at this overall, making a proposal back, or looking at what 1%, 5%, giving us some ideas of what the dollar value is.
Yes, well, I think we'll come up with different options.
Because the thing is, I'd like to make sure if we're talking percentage, attach a dollar value to it, so we know what we're talking about.
Okay. Okay.
You got help.
Thank you, Office of Finance. Just to clarify, the reference to the 1% is the City of Los Angeles 1% share of the local tax. So it would be a full refund of the sales tax that was paid by the film producer.
This is the 1% we keep.
That's correct.
We don't send it to state, we keep it.
That's correct.
All right.
That's great. Thank you. So it's 100%.
Yes.
No, that's it. I just wanted to clarify what the terminology.
Okay, then, so you want 30 days for that report?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the intent is to work with your office to ensure that the verification process and the application process is not overly burdensome to the taxpayers.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have one item that is receive and file. That's item number
5.
Number 5. Why don't we go ahead and do that? It's duplicative of the broader motion that I introduced to have all departments report to this committee on the status of their processes of working with the film industry. This one is specific to the Rec and Parks Department, but we've already had Rec and Parks come to us with that information, so we're receiving and filing item number 5 without objection. Item number 4.
Item number 4 is the Los Angeles Fire Department and Community Redevelopment Agencies to report relative to their efforts to facilitate filming in the city of Los Angeles.
As I just referenced with item number 5, the motion called for all departments to come, and we want to work with those departments that have, we believe, the most impact on filming. We are going to start with LAFD. Is that correct? Okay, the fire department.
Good afternoon, thank you. Mark Storms, Assistant Fire Marshal, Acting Fire Marshal, as Chief Hill is out of town. My first opportunity to address this committee, so thank you. Just want to say that we've been working, I was appointed to the position in November, and Fred Folks is the his longtime commander of the film unit. We've been working with CAO's office, CLA, as well as Paul and Donna at Film LA. The issues that we're working with them, we've met a number of times with Donna and Paul, as well as CAO and CLA, to address the issues that are brought to us by the industry. And those issues are being addressed, and we're developing policies as well as meet and confer issues with labor in an effort to try to reach out and make progress in the areas that they've brought to us. So the areas are in the, they'd like us to have the ability to be available after hours, available Monday through Friday from 5:30 to 9:30 at night. Contact our people to assist the industry in making changes to their staffing hours and their filming hours, as well as they'd like to provide phone contact and the ability to reach us 24 hours a day on an on-call basis, worked out through the fire department and the meet and confer with labor. Also, we have issues that were brought to us of to address the inconsistency or lack of consistency from day to day to day to day for long-term production. Captain Folks has developed a handoff sheet to allow special issues that are addressed from day to day to be passed on from inspector to inspector to inspector, and that information will be shared with the staff that's doing the filming to assure a smoother transition from day to day. As well, those notes will help to get the filming production started as soon as you can the next day. We've also been approached by Film LA. We have provided a station-by-station breakdown of the actual fire stations to be used as filming locations. That report has been provided to Film LA. We've also been approached by Film LA to develop plans for unified parking plans to minimize the need for inspections of parking lots used for the filming industry. We're developing a plan at this time to standardize the ability on some of those facilities. They also addressed us and asked us to, we've vacated a few fire stations as of late with the construction of new stations. Those will be added to the film site location as potential film locations as well. Additionally, we have met and explained one of the issues was fear of amongst the film industry to address, shall we say, personnel issues to the fire department, and the ability to put those concerns either anonymously or by name through the complaint tracking system to my office directly to assure that I can oversee the performance of our inspectors working these different events.
Is there a sort of a general nature of the complaints, or?
General nature of the complaint is most of the time the perception that they may be there to be somewhat obstructive, using the fire code and their concerns for safety as a bit of an obstruction to the progress of the production. We've had meetings with Chief Hill and myself and all members that perform fire safety watches to discuss the importance of working hand in hand with the productions to keep it moving, to help them keep on track and keep their budget within reason as well.
Now, let me ask you, are these inspectors specific to the filming? In other words, do you have a cadre of inspectors who are trained on the film industry?
Well, the film unit are inspectors that specialize in the filming in that part of the industry.
So they work out of the film
Right.
unit?
He has the ability to train the inspectors throughout the Bureau to be certified to work at film locations.
Do we know if the film unit inspectors are the ones that everybody says are great versus those who are coming in temporarily and maybe they're not as acculturated to the economic benefits?
Well, to be honest, I think to be dreadfully blunt, I think it has to do with the situation where you have a few folks that maybe are a bit heavy-handed, and
so they may or may not be in the film unit.
Right,
Okay.
and they may be a by-the-book kind of person. You know, this is the rule.
Well, we want to be by the book.
Right. We want to be by the book. We want to be safe. We want to ensure that the operation and the public is safe, but we also want to be
we also don't want them to forget about the economics book.
Right, and that's been heavily emphasized by Chief Hill in 2 recent meetings we had with all members. I attended both. Kevin Folks did as well. I am very comfortable with the fact that they understand the situation. The complaints will no longer go to Captain Folks. They will go directly to my office for investigation, and any follow-up that might be necessary.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
That's the end of my report, sir.
Oh, okay. There was one other. What about the idea of creating a pre-approved list of locations? In other words, some locations are, there's not much that's going to change from 1 year to the next or 1 week to the next, certainly. But if you have like a parking lot, very limited issues could arise. Can you sort of pre-approve it and maybe have an expedited inspection process?
Working on that this time. Captain Folks' staff is developing a list of parking lots that can be standardized without the need for an individual inspection.
And it doesn't have, I just mentioned parking lots as an example, but are there other kinds of locations that might fit into that category?
Yes, there is, and that's already actually in place right now. It's been in place for a while.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last
It's been in place for a while.
Oh, okay, good.
Especially in the areas of sound stages and facilities such as that. Those were built with that intent, or they could have been modified for that intent with a change of occupancy.
Great. I think the primary concern of the fire department is the inspection process, and it can be devastating to the business of filming and in its power, and so if to the extent that we can improve our track record, not to avoid public safety, obviously, which is our number one consideration, but to certainly develop a cultural attitude that is cooperative, working with the industry to help them solve those safety issues rather than working against them to shut them down and things like that. Yeah.
And as the search continues for different venues to do this filming, if you think of it from the perspective that a building is built for an intended use, we come in and or the film industry comes in and wants to use it for a different reason. Our mission there is to make sure that change of use is done in a safe manner. It's just that simple. We're there to make sure that it's safe for the crew, the public in general, and for the business, and to go on in a positive and successful manner. And we're working real closely with Captain Folks and his staff, bringing that transition. We've got additional training planned, ongoing quarterly training to address recent issues, because as the industry increases and their technology and use of different styles or techniques, that is issues that his inspectors may have not seen in the past. And so what we do is we bring those recent issues to these training sessions to try to keep our people up with the technology of the industry.
Great. Yeah, and it makes it a little more interesting also. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much. I'm satisfied with this report. Any questions? I don't have any cards on this, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move on to the Community Redevelopment Agency.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jenna Guliger with the Community Redevelopment Agency. I'm the Special Assistant to our Chief Operating Officer for Real Estate and Economic Development. I've been asked to present this report back. We looked at it in kind of two ways. One, we wanted to talk about our efforts and participation with the citywide, kind of ongoing work, and then additionally put forward our thoughts on kind of thinking more creatively and broadly about how to bring what the redevelopment agency does, into this effort to facilitate filming. So just generally in the first realm of what's already happening in the city, CRA, we've been involved with the task forces, the downtown parking task force, the city's film task force, and also several meetings that the mayor's office has held. So we have sent film liaisons to be involved and respond to these task forces. In terms of the 19 recommendations put forward by council, 3 are directly relevant to CRA and what we do, and we've been working on those. We do have department contacts for filming. The most popular one is Del Ramirez. He's our property management manager, so people go to him. I think Film LA works with him all the time directly. They have a hotline.
Del Ramirez.
What?
Del Ramirez.
yeah, Odelio.
That sounds like a film industry name.
Doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yes, I'll tell
Del
him that.
Ramirez.
He's not
I like
here
that.
today, but I'll let him know. So Del, he's the guy for when, and the main thing that we get interested in is the properties that we own. I mean, I think that's the number one way that we most directly help with filming. So I think.
Now, you say in part of your report, you talk about business assistance through commercial rehab or facade improvement program.
Yes.
What's business assistance mean?
Okay, you want me to skip to that section?
Sure.
Okay. That's kind of the section where I try to get creative about. I think we can think more broadly about entertainment industry other than making our properties available, which is the main thing, and parking lots and helping that, which I think we've had a really good relationship with Film LA and making that easier. Business assistance is about, post-production. Yeah, AB 2531.
Maybe you want to talk about AB 2531 first.
Yeah, sure. So AB 2531 is actually city-sponsored legislation, but CRA, we put it together and have been working with our Sacramento staff to get this through. It's actually going through this. It'll go to another Senate committee in the floor in August. That bill is basically making a change to redevelopment law to make job creation a fundamental purpose of redevelopment, and then additionally to give us broader authority to spend our tax increment on direct business assistance. So currently, redevelopment funds can only be spent on any project that has some relation to, a physical rehabilitation or a construction. So for example, when we talk about commercial rehab programs, in Hollywood for years there was a targeted entertainment industry commercial rehab program where we could provide and grants and conditional loans, which are basically grants, to fix up storefronts. So if we want to get the post-production facilities, the digital media, the recording studios, everybody supporting the film industry into these buildings, we can provide them funding to fix up their building. What we can't do is provide funding if there's no rehab going on. And what we can't do is provide funding for, say, fixtures and equipment that's not fixed to the building. What AB 2531 would do, and we could still do that. So I think that commercial rehab programs and marketing them, and to the extent that we partner citywide to market to the film industry, we should include these programs as something that may be of interest to entertainment companies. But AB 2531 would let us do much broader and more creative assistance with the tax increment that we have to support entertainment industry related companies.
Let me insert an idea.
Sure.
That you may or may not have considered before, and that is one of the biggest complaints that I received. Marilyn, you might want to hear this. One of the biggest complaints that I received. You can't leave my hearing. One of the biggest complaints I received coming in as chair of this committee was that certain building owners were holding the industry hostage on specific film shoots with exorbitant charges for background shoots and all kinds of things. Some of those structures have been funded by CRA. And the question is there some way to stipulate in the initial contract that if you're going to take taxpayer money, you can't turn around and charge exorbitant fees to the film industry that cause us to lose business. Is there some way to work around that concept?
This issue was brought to our attention. I had a conversation with John from the CLA's office, and then with our CEO and also with Paul Audley about this, because we thought about maybe some kind of a policy or some kind of standard language to insert into our development agreements. I mean, we cannot retroactively do that, but obviously going forward, I think the concern about doing that, just saying yes, we can do that. The concern is, do we want to then put additional constraints and make it harder to develop in the city? Because on the flip side, you're going to have kind of the larger community saying, here's another requirement. So I think it's something that we should look at pretty seriously and come back, but be careful about saying, yes, we're going to create language that's another requirement.
I recognize that, but do you think that the people are, there may be a few locations where people might purchase it with the intent of using it for filming, but typically they're just going in to develop it for some other purpose.
Correct.
And they're not thinking about filming, making money off the film industry. So I recognize your concern, but we might want to, well, first of all, I want to see if we can do it legally. And secondly, I want to continue the discussion of how we might might specifically work on a project like that. So I am going to ask the CRA to come back with a report, because I also want to talk to you about the green project that you're proposing in a little more depth, but we want to get our hands around it before presenting it entirely here. Okay, so I interrupted you, and if you could continue.
Well, basically, I was, just in terms of the recommendations, I think we covered that pretty much it's about our properties and making it easy to use our use our properties. Dell has been working very closely with Film LA. Right now, we're in the process of additionally identifying vacant lots that can be used for parking and staging that are CRA-owned, and figuring out, because most of the lots and things that we own, we might have a lease or something, so we're trying to clarify which of those can be easily available for filming. And then working with Film LA, our property management has identified 11 long-term properties, meaning we don't anticipate any near-term disposition, that will be placed on the film or the Loco Scout website. So we're working with Film LA on that. And then I just wanted to offer up, we understand that there's some maps being developed of parking lots, so we want to formally offer, we have, graphics in-house and mapping, so if the city or the task forces need assistance and that loop hasn't been closed already, we can provide assistance with all kinds of mapping relating to the parking lots.
Well, one thing that would be really interesting is that we could identify some film location zones, where there's a lot of things that are, or a location where there's a high concentration of use, and actually target it for example, the nodes that DWP put in for the power, those guys. Marilyn, I apologize. I just wanted you to hear that one thing. You don't have to hear the whole thing. But by the way, I forgot to mention to the city clerk that since chairing this committee, every new staff member who comes to the committee, because this is entertainment related, has to give us their rendition of God Bless America. So when the meeting is over, we'll be asking you to do just that. Getting back to the subject at hand, he's coughing. Getting back to the subject at hand, the real issue with CRA is how can we use community redevelopment dollars for lending purposes and development purposes in a way that it might enhance opportunities. Now, contributing dollars to a film gets into a very, you can't pick which films are going to be successful. It's a very difficult calculation that even experts in the film industry can't always win on. We certainly, I don't think, can imagine a way that CRA can help there. But I think when you said more creative ways under AB 25, whatever it was,
2531, correct.
30, thank you. What kinds, I'm sure you meant different ways to use financing or something to enhance opportunities.
I mean, I don't imagine CRA, and I even with AB 2531 being as broad as it is, I don't imagine us having legal authority to fund filming directly production, but the law as it's written is pretty broad. It says we can do direct business assistance. It lists a number of ways we could support filming, including, quote, other forms of assistance. So if we can think of a creative way to support, a business that somehow then supports filming, we will be able to create loan products. So we could look at ways to lend funds that are going to create jobs. To be honest, it's been challenging enough just trying to get the legislation for it. I have not started my laundry list of things that we want to do quite yet once it gets through, but assuming we get through, it'll be January 1st, it'll be in effect, and we will be open to finding ways to apply it to the entertainment industry.
And you said it's already been through the Assembly and it's
been through the Assembly.
At the Senate?
It's been through Senate Local Government Committee. I think there's still some working out to be done on some language. It's going through appropriations.
Who's carrying the bill?
Fuentes.
Okay. Okay, well then, if we could get a report back on that. I'm going to ask you.
2531?
Yeah, we're going to schedule an item specifically for CRA. The same file, but specifically to talk about your ideas on the green task force, and I'd like to add, if you could report back on AB whatever.
If I could clarify on that green idea, I'm getting the sense you don't want me to get into it.
No, go ahead.
I mean, it's actually, the reason I put it in here, to be quite frank, is it's not something I feel that CRA can take the lead on. I think it's something we can contribute to, and I basically talked about this to anyone who will listen. So I put it into this report, and I want to use an illustrative example because it's the best way to explain how I think the city can be creative about it. I mean, the best way to get filming is to provide direct incentives, right, which we can't at CRA, and the city's looking at business taxes and all these other things. But I think there's an opportunity to hit on like a trifecta of positive, from clean technology to bringing industrial jobs to supporting filming by coming up with some kind of a rebate to incorporate clean technologies and greening filming. This came out of a meeting with the great Paul Otley and his team where they introduced me to Jason Wagoner, the owner of Star Wagons, and he had partnered with another company that created a mobile solar unit that fastens onto the honey wagons, right, the base camps. So they were powering a film base camp with solar energy. So number one, that's less carbon emissions. Number two, it's quiet, right, because our neighborhoods, our residents that hate filming, they hate the diesel generators, right, they hate the noise, they hate the pollution, the smell. Plus, the entertainment industry loves it. The studios all have people dedicated to sustainability. Leo DiCaprio wants to be on that film, that's green. I think there's an opportunity to work with, AQMD, DWP, cross-departmentally, and think of a way to create some kind of a local LA incentive for some kind of like a green base camp. You can also use that as a way to attract green companies to LA, right? Put your company here, develop your mobile solar units or whatever you're doing. Do that in LA. So you've got the jobs, you've got clean and green, and then you've got a direct incentive to the entertainment industry. And I think if we can get creative like that, we can.
Well, I'm sure that's something that Film LA would like to work with the various departments on. Maybe we'll talk to them. Yeah. They have nothing else to do, so. Yeah. But I like the idea. It's just that. We have to ferret it out a little bit more and then bounce it off some of the other departments, particularly DWP, and see what we can come up with. But I appreciate your thinking out of the box. I really think that's, even when it's an idea that you aren't necessarily going to be the lead on, it's great to see departments saying, hey, here's an idea. We don't know exactly what to do with it, but maybe one of the other departments knows what to do with it. So, thank you for bringing it to the committee, and we'll be working with you and Film LA to see if we can come up with a proper way to push that idea forward. We know that the council and mayor are certainly supportive of greening incentives. It's just a question of can we do it directly for the industry, and I think it's a great idea. So, thank you very much. Now, if we can get that legislation passed, then we can do some loans so they can purchase some of the solar stuff. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you very much. Did you have any questions, Mr. Park? Okay. Well, that finishes with this item. We're going to schedule at some later point the CRA to come back with the report, as I mentioned. Any other items? We're done. We don't have any public comment cards. I want to thank everybody. This meeting is adjourned.